And welcome to the Crawford Podcasting Network. Another episode of All Rell and Good. Got a lot of block M's on this screen right now here on the streamline. Richard Rellford, my guest on the bottom of the screen. He's grinning ear to ear with that block M right over his right ear or left ear as you're looking at the screen. He's happy with his Wolverines are still rocking and rolling. And then up there in the corner box from Fairfax High School. Do I sound like Gus Johnson here? Fairfax High School in Los Angeles. Number 24, Sean Higgins, the former Michigan Wolverine standout national champion in 1989. And we remember that putback when T. Mills misfired on that three. And Sean stuck it back in there. The Illini go down, and we know the rest is history. Oh, welcome to All Rell and Good, Sean.
Hey, thanks for having me, fellas. It's a pleasure to be here, man. I've been watching the show, and you guys are doing a great job, man.
Yeah, well, that's because I got the pretty boy, Richard Rellford, there in the bottom screen, and that's what's bringing our ratings up here. But let's, before we get into this current Wolverine that you former players and myself as an alumnus are extremely proud of how this basketball team has evolved. Sean, why don't you update us, all the fans of the Michigan Wolverine basketball program, what you're up to these days? I know you're out in Vegas.
Hey, well, during the pandemic, man, I'm just trying to stay safe and healthy, man. That's pretty much what I've been doing. And preparing for when it opens back up, man, so we can start doing our camps again and helping these student athletes get some exposure.
You know, it's interesting. Both of you guys work with young people. I mean, Richard, you're doing that with your profession after playing international ball 15 years. Sean had 9 years in the NBA and has done a lot of teaching and also in some other business ventures. But nothing beats coaching, right, Rich?
Nothing beats coaching and helping kids because somebody taught us and helped us, and that's why we've just returning the favor, Tom.
Yeah. Okay, so before I get any further, we got to get the story. So right over my left shoulder, or whatever it is a picture of Bo Schembechler, okay? Sacred Bo Schembechler. And we all know what Bo Schembechler, let's go back to 1989, and, Frater gets whacked, or he resigns, and Bo wants him out of there, and Fish comes in there, and Sean made some – I don't know. Take us through that story. I want to have your version of why Sean said, listen, if Higgins wants to transfer, I got the paperwork on my desk.
Well, man, you know what? It's a lot of people switch that story up and they make it seem like, I was being, not a team guy at the time. And that's far from the truth. What happened was, once Coach Frieder left, I was asked a question by Ann Arbor News beat writer, if I didn't like the new coach, what would be my decision? Would I transfer or would I try to test the waters with the NBA? And I said, basically, I would have to see once that happens and then, weigh my options. So the next day in the Ann Arbor News, there's this article that comes out that if I don't like the new coach, I might transfer or go to the NBA. So. And I'm like, man, I was misquoted. So I thought Coach Fisher was going to be the one to chew me out for it, right? But surprisingly, Coach Schembechler came to practice, to motivate us and to lend Coach Fisher support, becoming the new head coach. And he basically went down the list of everyone. He went to Terry, Ramil. I think it was one other person before he got to me. And he said, son, if I hear one more word out of you, I'll have your transfer papers on my desk by lunch. And he said, now, are you going to get on this bus and this train with this team or not? And so, with Bo Schembechler, man, like I mentioned before the podcast, Bo came and spoke to me as a kid when I played with the Ann Arbor Packers in the Vince Lombardi Football League. So that wasn't my first encounter with Bo, but I was just surprised that he even knew who I was, man, because of how iconic he was.
Yeah. Well, Rich, you had a Bo experience. He was, you came out of, Riviera Beach, Florida, Suncoast High, as good in football. Well, maybe not as good, but pretty doggone good in football. And he wanted you to come out and play tight end. And so he was like, he's kind of taunting you to come out for football, was he not?
Listen, Bo was hilarious with me with that because when the reports came out that I was the number one tight end in the country my senior year. So when I get up to Michigan, Bo Schembechler says to me, when because the offices used to be in the same place with the football stuff.
Yeah.
And so I would have to walk through past Bo's office to get to Frida's office. And every time I came through there, Bo used to have this cat call. He used to be like, "Hey, young fella, chicken, come through here." He said, "So you don't want to play, huh? So this Big Ten football is a little too tough for you." And I looked at him every time and I said, "Coach, I'm from Florida. None of this stuff is too much for us. I can play. This is not what I love." And anybody who knew me, I always said to people, if you don't love a sport, don't play a sport. Because if you don't love it, you're not going to give 150%. And I knew. I was, like I said, I only played football in high school because all my friends played. And in my high schools, you couldn't go to that school if you didn't play football, especially if you was big as I was. I was 6'6", 230. So it wasn't going to happen.
And then you had some extra incentive too, man. I'm an almanac, man. I read up on guys. Like I knew about Richard Rellford before I even got to Michigan.
Oh yeah.
And so Richard, you went to the same high school as Anthony Carter, right?
Yo, Tom, this boy right here does his homework.
He does his homework. I'm impressed with Sean.
You know what, Sean? I did, and I always say this to people. You know, the greatest football player I've ever seen in my entire life is Anthony Carter. Because
me too.
I tell him at Michigan, what you saw, we saw triple that in high school. I tell everybody, Sean, this story. I saw him score 7 times in one game. Just one guy.
That's crazy. Man. That's crazy.
He was a monster, man.
Hey, I'm like,
Sean,
you know what? Go ahead.
Well, I want to ask you because people are always confused of that situation because Richard would literally would have handed it off to you because you played in Michigan. Let's go in the winter of 88, 89, and 90, and you would have been on that 86, 87 team. But clarify what happened on that whole UCLA thing, whatever that UCLA thing was. Why you weren't there at Michigan your freshman year, which would have been the year right after Richard.
Yeah, well, no. What happened was this. I actually came in with my class. I came in 87 with my recruiting class. Rich and those guys left in 86, right?
Right. Yeah. But what was the explain the UCLA thing. Where did you sign with them? I've never really heard the clarified situation.
Yeah. What happened, Tom, is coming out of high school, I was recruited by everybody in the country. I narrowed it down to 5 schools: Louisville, Kentucky, Michigan, UCLA, and Texas. Not in that order, but those are my 5 schools. And at the time, my mother's husband, he was a bus driver in Los Angeles, and he was taking, he was making illegal offers to schools on my behalf without me knowing it or my mom knowing it.
Oh man!
And so I was coerced into signing with UCLA. And so under duress. And so I signed with UCLA without, it wasn't my intent to sign with UCLA. Like I said, I was coerced to sign with them. And so the NCAA investigated it. And when they came out to interview me, they came out 4 times, the NCAA did. And, my story never wavered. As a matter of fact, one of the investigators said that, son, if you're lying to us, you should be a screenwriter because every time we come out here, your story's been the same. I said, because I'm telling you the truth. So that was the reason why they let me out of my letter of intent, because I was 17 when I wasn't 18. So I had to have my mom's signature, right? And so they let me out of it because I signed it under duress. And so I told them, I said, my first choice was to go to Michigan. And so, they let me out and I signed with Michigan at the McDonald's game. Mike Boyd came down to Philadelphia and signed me in my hotel room.
Right. Okay. So Rich, so I'm going to ask you you're a senior on the team at Michigan, getting your second Big Ten title.
Right.
How much are you involved? How much are you involved with helping recruit players that are oncoming the next year where you're not even going to be there? Were you involved in helping Michigan land Sean? And what define what that's like?
We knew Sean. I knew Sean because he was from Ann Arbor. Yeah. And so Boyd and all of them talked about this. And so our thing was, we wanted Sean to visit because we had already planned for me and Roy to take him out. Okay. That was the plan. But then we heard about the UCLA stuff. The reason I can understand what Sean is talking about with the recruiting, I had a similar situation because everybody was like, you going to LSU, you going to LSU. No, somebody at the school had took some payola. And because they took payola, they didn't tell me about it. I didn't get any money from it. And so I said, I'm not going to LSU. I'm going to Michigan because Michigan was my first choice as well. And so in recruiting time, it's a really tough thing on young kids because I'm gonna tell you, I had times where I felt really pressured from people because everybody thought I was gonna go to Maryland, and I kept saying to this, why is everybody speaking for me and I'm not speaking? And so recruiting is tough. Like Sean say, at the McDonald's All-American game, everybody comes at you, everybody. And so you have I had my brother to kind of sit me down and say, look, man, you got to go where you want to go, and that's why I chose Michigan.
Yeah. And what's so crazy about that, man, is that when I after I got out of my letter of intent, a lot of people in California, there's still people to this day that's pissed off at me for not going to UCLA. but what happened? Well, because my high school, like a lot of my teachers in my high school were UCLA alumnus. Like my high school principal was Warren Steinberg. You guys heard of the football agent Lee Steinberg, right?
Yeah, I know Lee.
His dad was my high school principal, and he was a UCLA grad as well. And but it's crazy. Mr. Steinberg, he was always supportive of me. He just like you said, Rich. He went to UCLA. He said, "I would love for you to be a Bruin, but you got to go with your heart."
There you go.
And that's what Lee Steinberg's dad did for me. He was there for me during that whole fiasco and that ordeal, man. And what a lot of people on the West Coast didn't understand, like Rich said, is that I'm originally from Ann Arbor. People thought I was a West Coast kid, and I'm not. I only lived in Los Angeles for 3 years.
Right. And see, we knew because of Coach Boyd. Coach Boyd's whole thing was, we can get this kid because he's from Ann Arbor. And when we heard he was from Ann Arbor, I was like, really? And then we found out he wanted to go to Michigan anyway.
Yeah, and Mike Boyd, this is what happened. Mike Boyd and my dad double teamed me in my recruiting because what happened is my dad, his dream school was the University of Michigan.
Yeah,
but he had to go to JUCO route first,
right?
Because of academics, right? And so the next best thing is to have his son play at Michigan. Since he couldn't, he had to go to Eastern Michigan.
Right.
So Mike Boyd and my dad, Mike Boyd played at Northern Michigan in college. He played for Northern Michigan. And my dad played at Eastern, so they knew each other because they had played against each other. And so once Mike Boyd put 2 and 2 together, they jumped on me from both angles.
I want to ask this. This brings up an interesting question because, when it comes to coaches who recruit you and then the head coach, because when Johnny Orr was at Michigan, all everybody said was, well, Frieder gets all the players, or Frieder doesn't, and Johnny Orr is just there, you know what I mean? And so when I talk to Rich about Frieder recruiting him, all he talks about is Mike Boyd. I mean, that's what I hear more than anything. I mean, what got you to go to Michigan? But I know all the connections. I knew your dad early. I saw him play in high school at Ann Arbor Pioneer. I mean, who was the coach, Sean, that got you to come to Michigan? Was it Freeds or was it Boyd?
It was a combination of both, because they both put a lot of effort into my recruiting. I mean, they were flying out to Los Angeles like every month. It was either Boyd or Frieder that was in my gym. I would sometimes be in the lunch line and Frieder would be in the lunch line.
That does not surprise me. That guy was a freak, man. He was a freak, man, when it comes to recruiting.
Yeah.
Listen, they had a good thing going with Boyd and Frieder and them, because Boyd was not afraid to go into the hood to recruit any of us.
Right.
My high school was in the hood.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, that's one of the things that I always said. Any coach that can come to my high school and not be afraid, he got a good chance of getting me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and one more question before we go to this current team, though. I mean, Sean, I saw you on this Big Ten Network. Your feature keeps popping up there, that '89 team, and then you're talking about the Bo story and all that stuff. And you made an interesting comment how different Bill Frieder was from Bo Schembechler. Define the difference of those two cats.
Oh, that's like night and day, man. I mean, Bo Schembechler is more fiery. Frieder's more laid back. I mean, Frieder would come to practice in flip-flops, man. And
yes, he would.
and like us being on the road, Frieder would let us wear our sweats and whatnot on the road, and Bo Schembechler had the football players in suits and ties.
Oh yeah.
So that analogy right there gives you perspective.
Yep.
Yeah. And Rich said you said the same thing. And Rich, you said you like going to, because Frieder lets you all play. You know, you and
You
Butch
let us
and
loose.
Tarpley and those dudes, you just let us play, roll the balls out. We'll do our thing, and you do all the whatever he did. I mean, wasn't that it?
That was basically it, because when it came to X and O's, Coach Fisher did the X and O's. When we get into a huddle, Fisher did the X and O's, because I saw at most schools the assistant coach does the X's and O's, because the head coach, everything runs through him. So no matter what the assistant coaches do, they all have to go through Frieder. And so, listen, just like Sean's team, Frieder was there at the beginning for Sean. And so you get to Frieder let you go. And he wanted to just see results. And when you came in with a W, he was happy.
You know, Sean, were you pissed off? Were you pissed off, Sean, when Freed's left at him? Or where were you at with that whole thing?
Oh, yeah, I was pissed off big time. When Frieder left to go to Arizona State, I almost went with him.
Oh, okay. So you weren't mad at him. You were just mad at the situation that he was leaving.
I didn't know who the new coach is going to be, right?
Yeah. No, I understand.
And so with Frieder, like Rich just said, Frieder was a player's coach, man. He'll let you play. Yeah. And, you know, like my first college game, I had 22 against the Yugoslavian national team. Because Frieder, and I was a freshman, he just let me go play, go do what you do. You know, but when Frieder left, man, you know, I was like, man, he's going to Arizona State. I might have to go with him. You know, and Rich, you know, it was a lot of different reasons. You know, when Coach Frieder left, man, things got a little funky. You know, because Fisher the next year, it was his first year, so he didn't know the ins and outs on how to keep McDonald All-Americans happy.
He's right.
But he figured it out. He figured it out. You know, after I left my junior year, and he figured it out because he got the Fab Five to come to Michigan. You know, so he figured it out eventually. What happened with that.
Well, let me ask you this, Sean, and then we're going to go to Rich and start talking about the current Wolverines. I mean, it's so much fun talking about the past, but the present is pretty doggone fun as well. But when you talk about, Fish couldn't figure it out that final year, how did he get through? How did he navigate through those 6 games as the interim head coach to cutting down the nets in Seattle? I mean, how does that work with him? How did that work? Was it just you guys?
Well, like Rich mentioned, Fisher was always the one doing the X's and O's, right? So when Fisher got the job, it made it easier for me to make a decision on Stan, because Fisher was always the one who was vocal in practice. But to answer your question, for those 6 games, Tom, is that what Fisher did, he managed our minutes well. That's what it was. He didn't do a lot of X's and O's because he had talent on that team. You know, you don't squeeze and bottle up talent like we had. But what Fisher did, he made a great decision to take me out the starting lineup and bring me off the bench, and inserted Mike Griffin into the starting lineup because Mike Griffin wasn't a scorer. No. We didn't have any scoring coming off the bench. Yeah. We only had Mark Hughes and Demetrius Caleb coming off the bench. So if Glenn got in foul trouble, now what are we going to do? And I'm on the floor too with Glenn. So it wasn't enough basketballs to go around. And so Fisher found that out. And then it kind of helped me and Glenn play together as well, because, you know, I only played like 20 minutes a game in that tournament. And you know, like against Virginia, I played crazy. 20 minutes. Yeah. I played 20 minutes that game and had 31 off the bench in 20 minutes. I know. I know. That was nuts. So Fisher just managed us well, man. His managerial skills they were impeccable, to say the least.
Yeah. Well, hey, it got him a national title, you know, and so however it works, let it work. And that was amazing. And I was down at Rupp Arena for that big win over North Carolina on that Thursday night, second half of that double header. And on the way to Florida, I was in person at that game. And that was the game. That was the game that won you the national title, in my opinion, beating North Carolina, a team that had been frustrating Michigan over the years. Definitely. I mean, you remember that game. You had 2 really good games, Sean, back down at that Rupp Arena, if I recall.
Yeah, that was the breakout year. Breakout game for us in terms of getting over the hump, because North Carolina had bumped us up 2 years prior. Yeah. And so, you know, they had a heck of a team too, with J.R. Reed and Jeff Lebo and all those guys. Yeah. But yeah, you know, I hit some big free throws down the stretch to seal the game against North Carolina. And then, you know, that Virginia game, what motivated me there was just they had 2 guys on that team, John Crotty and Richard Morgan, who I had some history with back in high school. and so I had to get some get back.
Yeah. Okay, Richard, let's talk about this Wolverines. When we talked yesterday,
Yes.
you were about ready to light a cigar. I mean, and you were pretty giddy, my friend, yesterday at that win over Indiana. And I want to start with Franz Wagner.
And
Because you played international ball. He's kind of an international player. I mean, this dude he's lights out right now. What do you think of Franz?
I'm smiling because you remember 2 years ago when he was coming in, and I said to everyone, they'll be lucky to keep him for 2 years.
Yeah.
Because I saw his skill set. And I was just talking about this yesterday. Juwan Howard went to Greece to watch this kid play.
Yeah.
So he had to be something for Juwan to take that long trip to Greece, because I played in Greece. So I knew exactly what the trip that he was taking. And listen, when I found out about this kid, man, I was more than happy. And it's paying off for these guys right now.
Yeah. Hey, Sean, before Richard finally showed up to our podcast, as we were waiting around in the green room here, we were talking about Mike Smith, and you went on and on about this dude. What you got a grad transfer from Columbia, Ivy League, seamlessly meshing in there. In the post-game presser, Isaiah Livers said, instant connection with this guy. He felt, he stepped in the locker room. It was like his team. Talk about what you see, Sean Higgins, and Mike Smith.
Well, he's cerebral, man. He plays the game, from the neck up. And, his generalship on the floor, man, is just, he reminds me of Gary Grant.
He does. That's a good one.
Yeah, because Gary Grant could score the ball as well, just like Mike Smith, but he could distribute that thing and run a team like no other. That's why he's called the general. And Mike Smith, he reminds me a lot of G. Grant, man, but, he keeps everybody on even keel, man. He makes sure the ball moves. He gets into the paint. I mean, and for Hunter Dickerson, man, Mike Smith is pretty much a guy sent for him, because the way they run pick and roll is out of this world. And the rest of the guys, you mentioned Franz Wagner, man. I mean, I remember, Rich, when you said that. When he first came as a freshman, I remember you when you had those sentiments about him. And, you look at his length, he can put the ball on the deck.
Yeah.
I mean, he can he can get to the rack, he can shoot three. I mean, he's a consummate NBA player. I mean, and Rich, you played in Europe. They start those kids off young, man. They start them off young in terms of teaching them the fundamentals. And you can see, I saw him Euroskip and George Durbin finger roll against Indiana the other day. Oh my God. I mean, that's stuff you just can't teach.
Yeah. No, Rich has been raving about him, and it's Rich. Remember in the Iowa game, the no look off that semi break, he dishes it delivers, and for the two-hand jam. I mean, he was looking straight ahead. A no look at the speed he was going. That was a high level NBA play. But did you see the pass he passed to Hunter Dickerson yesterday during the Indiana game when he wrapped it around the defender? Yeah.
When Franz wrapped it around the defender, all Hunter had to do was jump up and dunk the ball. I thought that was an amazing pass.
Yeah. I'm going to show a stat right now, and I'm going to start with you, Sean, just a second here. But, because your teams were a little bit different. Look at this balance, I'm sure. Isaiah Livers averages 14, 0.5 and that, or whatever. You got two in the 14 category. And then Franz at 13 or whatever. Smitty and Shawnee and at 8. I've never seen Sean Higgins a more balanced attack of a Michigan basketball team and following this program for almost 60 years and there's no Glenn Rice or, just a guy who's just flat out, shooting the ball and scoring 30 a game. Have you ever seen balance like this?
Well, I mean, not in a while, man. I mean, we had similar balance, when Glenn left my junior year. I mean, we all averaged like around 16 points a game. That's true. But like today in the modern game, I haven't seen it. The balance scoring like Michigan has, all the way around the board. I mean, there's no one looking for, the accolades, and you can tell that they're all team guys. So that makes a big difference when you're building chemistry. And that's what, and I'll back to Mike Smith again. it's going to be tough to replace him next year. And so, even with Eli Brooks, how he's matured,
Yeah.
your guard play really kind of sets the tone of that balance, that scoring balance. And they have really good guards in Brooks and Smith.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about to close this out. I want to talk about this huge Illinois game. And Sean, you have a little history against Illinois. Well, and Richard, you do too. Obviously, you came out and they were in second place your junior year. That they were in second place, way behind you guys who won 16 games. It's going to potentially be the same amount of gap, but. Mm-hmm. Let's say Ayo Dosunmu plays in this game. Okay, I don't think there's a chance he might not. I mean, what's Michigan's biggest challenge, Richard, against Illinois, which is a critical game, which will clinch the Big Ten title on Tuesday night at Christ.
The big kid that they got playing in the middle.
Oh yeah,
to me,
Kofi Coburn. Yeah,
he makes a big difference because he's so strong and he can. We don't need Hunter to get in foul trouble. We need to get him in foul trouble because him being in the middle, he causes a lot of problems. Because I watched the game the other day and I was like, he's the problem because the young guy wasn't playing. The guard, and I don't know if he's going to play against us because I don't know if he has a broken nose or whatever.
Yeah, he's got a broken nose. It's bad. I mean, Ayo Dosunmu, who I think is, I think Ayo Dosunmu is about. I'd rather have him playing for me in the last 5 minutes than pretty much any cat in the whole country. I mean, he could. That dude can close out games, and I hope he doesn't play on Tuesday night. Selfishly,
I'm not kidding you. I don't care if he play either. To be honest with you.
Okay.
I mean, he beat us at the buzzer last year.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I was at that game. And that was from the Knicks County. I mean, that was from Ypsilanti. I mean, he nailed that thing. I mean, it was.
Let me add this too about Illinois, Richard. The big man. Yes, that's definitely the X factor for Illinois. But I'm gonna tell you what else I think is going to be crucial for us is transition defense against Illinois.
Yes, I agree with you. For sure, transition defense, because we already know Illinois go down the floor.
Yeah.
They got that young kid from Florida, Trent.
Right.
And Trent's tough. Trent's from my area.
They up and down the floor. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So, Sean, one more thing with you. If there's something that you're concerned about with Michigan, not just, finishing the regular season, the Big Ten tournament, and going into the NCAA tournament, what's the thing that worries you as a former player, which could get them in trouble and thus eliminated?
That's a good question and a tough one too, but I don't see a lot of flaws with this team. But the one thing that I see with Michigan is if Hunter Dixon gets in foul trouble.
There you go. You nailed it.
Yeah.
Hey, you win the prize.
No, see, Sean's a player though, Tom, because that's exactly what I was going to say. If Hunter gets in foul trouble, we got issues.
But here's
I've
how
never
you
seen you wall up like that.
Yeah, but here's how you combat keeping him out of foul trouble. Especially in terms of who you're playing, because as you know, Rich, this game is all about matchups.
Right.
So if you play, and Juwan has done this in some games too. If you notice, some games Hunter doesn't play as much.
Yeah.
He'll play, and Juwan will play him in spot minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because look, if Hunter Dixon's gonna have a chance at the next level, for one, he's gonna have to stretch his game out a little bit. But if he reminds me of the kid in Indiana, Sabonis. I played with his dad, Arvidas.
Oh, come on, man. I played against him. I know.
Yeah, he reminds me of Sabonis. So if Hunter Dickinson can learn how to be effective in spot minutes, he'll have a long pro career.
Well, here's my wish, my final wish here on All Rell and Good with our special guest Sean Higgins, one of the more animated individual we have on this podcast. And we're going to have Glenn Rice on here and other Wolverines, and we're going to have you back, Shawnee, because you're so good. But my wish is this, is that a year from now, they'll have that reunion like they do. Juwan's going to bring everybody back, and you can all look up there and point with pride at that banner that says 2021 national champions, the Michigan Wolverines. Now, how sweet would that be? I mean, would that be a lot of fun for y'all?
That would be real sweet.
That would be great. hey, it's been 30 years of loneliness up there, man.
That's right. That's right.
Sean's got his fingerprint on the lesson, and I'm going to ask you one more final question, because Richard's asked this or I've asked it to him, and he's answered it vehemently about Juwan Howard and his relationship with former players. Now, he's a former player. What's that been like from your perspective, Sean, thus far? And this is his second year.
Well, I haven't had a chance to speak with Juwan since he's been there. When he got hired, Ward Manuel called a few of us and asked, what we thought, in terms of the hire. But one thing about Juwan, with me personally, is that when we were both in the NBA, I used to go to Chicago in the summers because the run in Chicago used to be pretty good.
Yeah.
A lot of pro players were. So I would go to Chicago, and Juwan, we sometimes would be on the same team, and we would be playing against other pros. We were on the floor talking that Michigan stuff, and then when I was the head coach at the JUCO out in Seattle, Juwan came out to play the Sonics. When he was coaching, I think he was with Miami. He had just started coaching in Miami, and one of my assistant coaches ran into him at the barbershop and put him on the phone with me. And it was just like I saw him when we were kids. And he was just the nicest guy in the world. So Juwan, I gave Ward Manuel 2 thumbs up when he said Juwan Howard was being considered as the head coach, because I watched his growth in Miami. And then Juwan was always a upstanding guy. Juwan, he had the work ethic. It was all. I listened to a podcast the other day. One of my former teammates who played with us and the Fab Five, Eric Riley.
Yeah.
Eric Riley said something about Juwan Howard that I said, that's a great assessment. He said Juwan is almost like he's been to the military, the way he approaches things. His discipline. And that's right up our alley. That's Michigan, in terms of our perception and our persona. We're military guys. I've never been to the military, but when you go to Michigan as an athlete, when you leave there, you're gonna feel like you've been to the military.
There you go.
I agree with Sean totally. I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I tell you, this has been too much fun, and all of a sudden, 30 minutes goes by. I mean, it's just like we just got started here. I mean, it's
we're
great.
gonna have Sean back some more.
Oh, we are. But I know he's a busy guy. He's got all these business things going, development and basketball camp.
Man.
We'll squeeze it. He'll squeeze us in,
Check
right,
this out,
Sean?
I'm always good, man, to come on this show, man. This is my 3rd time, Tom.
Right.
I know. And I'm telling you what, we're gonna do more of that.
Did you hear me saying it's a Michigan thing?
Yeah.
I ain't got a problem doing a show for a Michigan guy.
All right. Sounds good, guys. Okay.
All right, guys.
Go Blue to all you guys, and cheer on those Wolverines. Big week coming up. We'll talk to y'all soon.
Go Blue. Thanks,
All
Sean.
right, good show, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah.